my name is Savannah Toll. I am the owner of Plant Savvy, and today I'm with
Kelly. I am Plant Savvy's maintenance technician.
She's baller. And today we're going to talk about indoor plant design trends of 2025. Let's get into it.
So interior plant design, just like any design, is a very cyclical matter. So we kind of see things recycle in design trends. We draw inspiration from design trends that have come before. So I think the best goal to shoot for in your own interior plant design, or what we attempt to shoot for in our design for clients, is a timelessness.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want design that is going to be reflective of your personal style as well, because that's the best way to ensure that you are going to like it, because it's your style. And so honing in on your personal style is, I think, the best way to really create some and participate in design trends that you love.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's hard to follow design trends that are happening, and then you find that, a year from now you're like, I actually hate everything I just bought, and then you go and buy more stuff, and then it's like you're just going to continue down this cycle of just buying stuff that you don't like or don't actually fit your style but fits the design trends of that time or the era that you're in. And I think, as Kelly said, finding what you like and don't like will make choosing pieces or incorporating design pieces, whether that's a couch or a plant, into your home and make it feel like, oh, this is classic, this is going to last a long time because I like it, not because anyone else does. That being said, there are a couple trends or design popular styles, or just things that we would like to see more or incorporate more, not only in our own homes, but our clients' homes or commercial spaces as well. And a big one of that is incorporating biophilic design, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But do you want to go ahead and talk about some of the justification?
Yeah, so I think a trend that we've seen in the recent years in interior plant design and just interior design in general is kind of a very hyper natural use of materials in in natural stone that you're using, in a really natural wash of wood. And I love that design style so much, but I think that what I'm really excited to see more of, and what I've seen a bit of already, is a really harsh juxtaposition between the organic and the inorganic materials. So using a metal planter with a Dracaena, just kind of really emphasizing the natural and the unnatural in your design, I think is so cool, because it kind of showcases the whole point of biophilic design, which is bringing natural materials, plants, flowing water into built environments, and kind of emphasizing the way that those things can be harmonious together. And so I think that in interior plant design, I would love to see a lot more of leaning into those harsh juxtapositions. I think that's really cool.
So. Yeah. And I think that there's also in buildings, and a lot of the buildings that we're in, there's a lot of like metal work that's, maybe bars across the top of these buildings, or within your own home, having like, we were just in a home that had like, it wasn't concrete, it was granite floors. Granite floors, everything was super harsh lines, very clean, very modern. And the one thing that this woman wanted was, I just want plants everywhere to kind of help fix those harsh lines, because she wanted those. But I felt like the plants ended up matching so well with that. Now, it would have been cool, a lot of her vessels that these plants were in were really like organic looking, which were super sick. But I feel like if she just played into that, what you were just talking about would have really also elevated that same look a little bit more, or even just like mixing those two together. I definitely think that trying to move not farther away, but like trying to do something a little bit different than just having a natural stone or textured planter with an organic plant. Like, let's play around. Let's be a little funky.
Yeah, because I feel like it really highlights the biotic nature of plants. Like, it's just like they're not naturally occurring in our built environments. And like, instead of trying to pretend that they are, sometimes I think it's really cool to just lean in. And it's kind of like I kind of think about this design style as like a post-apocalyptic
Yes.
like world where you see these buildings, but there's like vines growing all over them. And it's like kind of this intermeshing of like human and nature and man-made and naturally occurring that I think just like really makes the plants pop and just look so cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see, especially in commercial spaces, a lot of them really getting into the biophilic design in that sense of like the vines growing on the outside of buildings. It's like it's a concrete or it's a masonry building, whatever. But when you have that play in there, I feel like it elevates a building and just makes it look like it's incorporated into our world because it's having skyscrapers, especially in Nashville. I know that in Chicago and in New York and in California, they've really gotten in on that biophilic design when it comes to like commercial spaces. But we're slowly starting to get more involved, and you take places like one hotel that has these ivy that's growing up the sides of the columns on their building and all along the edge of it. It makes someone be like, oh my gosh, what is that place? Instead of like just a building that's next to another building that's next to another building.
Yeah, it's really cool because I think that in that relationship between opposites, they're emphasizing and creating harmony between one another, even though they're so different, which I think is really cool about that design style.
Super cool. And that goes into play of vertical gardening or green walls. I'd really like to see more of different types of green walls instead of like individual planters, or you could get like a full system, like we've like done systems where it's an actual wall and it kind of incorporates in and of itself. I like to see stuff that's a little bit more interesting with grid walls or like metal mesh lining. And I think we've seen a lot of that with like maybe wood, but I think that also goes into play of the inorganic of like pairing organic and inorganic materials together. I think it creates a more modern look if that's what you're going for. I mean, you can even get into adding preserves with real plants. And I think that that's also really fun, like moss art, and then incorporating like a real fern or a real epiphyte. I cannot talk.
Epiphyte?
I cannot talk today. Preserve of like a fern or an epiphyte, and then around it have this preserved moss or even like birchwood or driftwood added in that. And then you can frame it on something like maybe a metal frame, or maybe it's a grid wall with mounted plants added on top of it, or even like a grid wall or like a metal mesh with orchids flowing out of it. I mean, that again is a like first design trend of pairing those together. But I really would like to see utilizing their vertical space as well as their floor space, because there's something so timeless and also like a wow moment when you walk into a space and you just see like this beautiful moment happening, versus yes, a tree is beautiful, but like when you really take into account like the work that goes into really creating something of like vines trailing around or trailing down a bar, it just really makes something that's like, wow, I've never seen that before, or that's so cool. And I think that's like those type of wow moments would be really interesting to see in 2025.
Yeah, and I feel like that with the getting a little bit more creative with your green walls, incorporating moss, preserved foliage, flowering plants like orchids, that's a really great way to kind of bring in plants as an art installation. Because when you think about it, when you're creating, arranging these plants, choosing these plants, they are all becoming a piece of art as well as a living system in your environment. One of the tenets of biophilic design is that it benefits the wellness, your overall well-being so massively, having green in your spaces, investing in, a bunch of plant life. And something that I would really love to see more of in 2025 is leaning into plants as art pieces. So, you know, commissioning someone to do an installation, whether that be with preserved foliage or real plants, and creating just a really gorgeous moment that is an art piece in your space, I think is so impactful. One of my favorite installations that I've seen in recent years was what Glossier did with their space. They incorporated stone and moss and preserved foliage to create these really, really interesting displays in their stores. And I mean, everyone was talking about it. It was like such a cool moment that I think it would be awesome to see that done more.
Yeah, like window displays and different stuff like that, of actually using this stuff as art, or thinking about it more as an art versus just a plant on the floor or a floor plant. Like, it's, you can really get into it and make it look like a beautiful thing that people will talk about, and talk about your products or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then you can even do that in your own home. You know, you have art projects, you can start to really create something that's specifically you within your own spape.
Yeah. Something that I've been really, really into lately
Yes.
is orchids. So please let me talk about orchids.
Yes, go right on.
Okay, so orchids are a really amazing epiphyte, which means they grow naturally on trees. So what's really cool about an epiphyte like a monstera or a staghorn fern is that you can actually mount them on pieces of wood or on sphagnum moss, and their roots will start to grow around what you've mounted them on. And so they literally become a piece of art that you can hang on your wall. And I think that that's a really awesome way to kind of play with bringing flowers into your home, because what I would really like to see more of as well in 2025 are indoor flowering plants, which I think back in like the 50s and 60s, something like an African violet or a primrose were really popular to have in your homes. But I feel like in recent years of plant design, we haven't seen a whole lot of leaning into flowering plants in your home, because I think people feel like they're difficult, maybe, is the reason.
Or maybe people don't want to have pollen or something in their home is another thing. Or maybe the flowers don't smell the way that they want them to smell. But I think they look cool.
Yeah.
And I think you could choose a specific plant based on how it would smell or not smell, like fragrance wise. But I love flowering plants.
Yeah. And I think that if you're doing your research on what the plant needs, and I think the best way to determine whatever plant you're bringing into your home, if you're going to be able to give it the care that it needs, is to research what the natural environment is for that plant. Because the best way to make your plants thrive is to be able to closely mimic where they came from as best as you can, where they thrive as best as you can, whether that's with the lighting situation, with the watering, with the humidity. That's the hands down best way to keep a plant alive, is to just know where it came from, pretty much.
Yes. Yes.
So thinking about the way that you're displaying your plants in your home, you can incorporate, say like a fresh cut flower wall sconce into your gallery wall, which would be a really cool way to include plants and flowering plants in your home. I've also seen people who you do propagations in those as well, and you can do that with a vining plant, to where it's like vining through the pictures on your wall, which I think would be so cool.
Yeah. I mean, because some plants can survive in water if you have like prop drops and different stuff in there, or fertilizers. So you can get away with having a wall sconce or like an interesting glass wall mounted vase, and have plants living in there, and then create that like vertical plant look without having to have a full potted plant. And I think that can play into different styles. You can go super clean with that. You could also go super maximalist with that as well.
Yeah, you can like find like a thrifted jar that you can use and stuff like that. And the best thing about doing a propagated plant is the care for that is going to be so minimal. So you kind of can just, as long as you're refreshing that water every so often, really just forget about it, and that plant's going to thrive.
Yeah.
So
that's super cool.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about aquatic plants?
Okay, now that we're on the subject.
Speaking of water.
So what I've been kind of, just because we had a client that we were kind of working with aquatic plants, or like a pond outside, and I thought that it was kind of interesting to see if how you would bring that indoors. And I think that people forget that plants can survive just in water if you are fertilizing, switching out that water. The care is so much easier than it would be if it was a potted plant. Um, but I think that creating, I mean, I guess I would call that like a waterscape, or
Yeah.
even that can go into play of like terrariums and that kind of different style of doing plants. And it's usually like smaller plants that you're playing around with, but like basically making a small world inside of a bowl or inside of a glass globe is very interesting and cool. And you can also bring in that same like art installation style of like, you can have rocks and moss living on that, all inside of this world that you've created. And I think that the bringing water inside is, and like different plants like that, it gives you access to different types of plants that you wouldn't normally be able to live in potted soil. So like papyrus and lily, smaller like dwarf lily pads. Basically making, and if you're obsessed with small things like I am, you can make a little small world and add in like little
Trinkets.
stuff that's trinkets and stuff that's a little personal to you and your style. And I think that that's a super fun way to display plants. And I know this is kind of off topic, but it makes me think about my friend Kiara, who has this really beautiful large like bowl terrarium that she put on a pedestal, and then she hung a Soltech Solutions light, a pinned it light up above it. So it's basically like an art installation terrarium. She's got it mounted. She's got that like supplemental light that makes it look like this is a corner that is specifically for this terrarium that I've created. That she has it like leveled up this way, so in the back it's like big and then it kind of goes down, so it's like creating a landscape inside of our own home. It's super sick, and it's that kind of like personal style, and playing with plants as art is such a beautiful thing. And I'd like to see more people getting into that kind of style. So like you could do something like that with a mini like pond situation, and then that also brings into play the sensory part of biophilic design.
Yeah, like incorporating something that we talk about a lot in biophilic design, I know, is incorporating a multi-sensory experience is kind of like the number one tenet. So how does this make you, what do you smell? What do you see? What do you hear? Running water, the smell of dirt. And like
It is,
but
yeah.
it's grounding, and it genuinely, like, there are studies that show how that positively impacts overall well-being in humans, to hear those things, to smell those things, to see the fractals that plants create. And so yeah, just I love that in that concept we're really bringing in not only plants but just naturally occurring environments into built environments, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Makes me think there's another interior-scaping company called Greenery NYC, and they made this multi-sensory room in an office, which you don't, I forgot which office it is, but you normally see offices that go like full in on the biophilic design, but when they do and they do it well, it's amazing. And I just think about what it would be like to work at some of these offices and be like, okay guys, I just got off a phone call with a crazy bitch and I need to go into this multi-sensory room and no one come in there and talk to me. And you can just sit down in there and like take a breather, hear running water, be surrounded by, basically you're in a forest inside. And that is like such a beautiful thing that I think people and commercial spaces are getting more involved in, which I'm excited to see, because I can only imagine the benefits of that in your own workspace. I mean, having a couple plants here and there, you've got, you're more likely to get more work done. You're happier at work. You
Lower stress,
lower stress
it,
levels,
increases creativity,
mm-hmm.
All of those things. Just having plants around, it's the simple act of having plants around. I mean, it truly, like, it impacts your overall well-being in such a positive way.
Yeah. So it's like in your own home as well as in your workspaces or something like that. I just think that it's exciting to see businesses and people get more excited about plants in that manner of like the science behind your health and what it means for you, because as humans, we were not meant to be inside.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be out there foraging,
running around, foraging,
barefoot.
Yeah, seriously. And so it's like, yeah, we've over the past, century, we have been just like inside more and more, especially after the pandemic, like working from home. And it's so important that as humans, we get that, like we touch grass, literally.
Literally, y'all need to get out there and touch grass.
We have to do that.
We've got to start doing that.
And you should know this too.
Yeah, so that multisensory situation is really important. What else could you do that's multisensory? Like a smell, adding fragrance.
Yeah, like
flowering
Yeah.
plant, or maybe something like a memory. I see a lot with memory gardens. That's more for retirement homes and stuff. Well, they teach their residents about maybe they had a specific plant from their childhood that smelled a specific way, and that would help try to jog memories or keep memories like alive, basically. And incorporating that within your own home if you've got something, because I know plants also can mean a lot to people. So like you got handed down a plant from your grandmother that passed away or something, and like memory holds on to those plants. And I think that multisensory thing can add in altogether of like, if it's not water, maybe try to do something else that's along those same lines of sensory or like feel. Even try to think of like,
I think moss is a really great way to do that, because
like
I think that, I mean, I don't know if anyone has ever touched moss. If you're,
it's amazing.
It's like the best thing, and it rocks.
It's awesome.
Let me say that. Yeah, so like incorporating something that like it's a plant that it's okay for you to touch it, and like, because I think sometimes people like view plants as very, very delicate objects, but they're hardy and like they can handle, I mean, don't like rip out a leaf, but like, touch a moss wall.
Touch a moss wall, unless they have a sign that says don't touch.
Okay,
but
yeah, that's true, probably. Don't quote me on that. I'm gonna have people grabbing plants in spots, because that's what I do.
Especially if you like work from home, trying to create that at home it's probably going to help your daily life and make you feel a little bit better. So we'd like to see more of that kind of incorporating true biophilic design, because I mean, from our other videos, true biophilic design is actually like really, really hard to achieve, because it basically is just bringing the outdoors in.
Like full immersion,
like sounds and like this like bird sounds or something on like speakers and shit like that. So it's like really incorporating that. It's kind of harder in office spaces or different spaces like that, but in your own home you can pick and choose things that work for you and incorporate that in your own home.
So I think in the same vein as kind of reshaping the view of plants to be more of an artistic view, something that I've really, really been loving and hope to see more of in 2025 are an emphasis on form-focused plants. So I feel like I honestly feel like bromeliads are very overlooked in the plant community. Like,
because you just see the one that
the
flowering,
like, with the flower,
and it's like,
and like because I think that similarly to how I feel about orchids, it's kind of like a grocery store plant to where like you just pick it up, you give it to your mom on Mother's Day, and then like people are so cool with those plants dying, because they're like, I got it for $5 at Kroger. And like, but like these plants, there's so many different cultivars and varieties of these plants, like specific bromeliads. Gosh, wait, what is this one called?
This is Quesnalia marmorata Tim Plowman.
There's specific cultivars and varieties of like bromeliads and orchids that I think are really amazing to think about when you're trying to think about form-focused plants. So when I say that, I'm meaning something that is very structured, something that really plays with the negative space in between foliage. So that can also play into strategic pruning of your plants. So I really love to see like weird kind of bald looking almost chafleuras or ficuses.
Yeah.
And that can be achieved with something like strategic pruning.
Yeah. I think that has kind of gone into more style due to people not being able to care for those plants. I know that sounds bad, but I've noticed a lot in like design magazines, seeing not plants that are like full and lush and large, but more of these like strategically pruned, or also maybe just haven't been cared for, and they are reaching out in specific, more character driven is what we call them. And I like the look, but I think that where that comes from is because design magazines or people who are pushing design are showing that you don't need a huge, large tree to get the look that you want. Like these more kind of funkier looking plants that are meant to look this way get the job done just as well, and add also a piece to your design that no one else could achieve unless they strategically did that way.
I love the look of that because I feel like it's very architectural.
Yes.
It's just like weird and freaky, and I love plants that are weird and freaky so much, and that is what I really, really am hoping to see more of in 2025, is kind of shifting away, because a lot of these plants like aren't even rare. Like you can you can get a weird like anthurium, you can do like a fuzzy cactus, or a bromeliad, like I said, and you can find them in garden centers. A lot of them are really easy to care for, but I kind of a shift away from like your really popular houseplants. Like I love a monstera, of course, but like you're seeing them everywhere. And I think what's really interesting is like choosing that like weird little freak at the nursery and being like, you're coming home with me.
Yes.
Because it's a conversation starter. It's interesting. People are going to be like, what is that plant?
What is that plant?
You know? And I think they're just really fun. And it's a really fun way that you can play with a more design focused perspective in your interior plant choices.
Yeah, I love that. Bring home the freaks, guys.
Bring the freaks home.
And in the animal shelters as well.
Yes, I
Bring
agree.
home the freaks.
In that same kind of thought process, a weird planter.
Yes.
Like a planter that I think kind of mimics the plant almost. Like say, putting a cactus or a euphorbia or a spurge in like a pokey planter is so fun to me. And I feel like really just like plays into the form of that plant, which I think ends up looking really cool.
Yeah, let's bring back funky, freaky planters. We've seen the cylinder white planters. Let's look at something else.
Yeah, branch out. And like handmade stuff. I love to really use recycled stuff. Like I thrifted this coffee can that is like the perfect size for a 4-inch plant, and I put a ficus umbellata in there, and it looks so cool. Like it just, again, it's like that juxtaposition of natural and inorganic materials to kind of emphasize this harmony between opposites that I think is really cool.
Yeah. And that doesn't have to come at a large price. If you thrifted that coffee can, you could buy the coffee if you like the can.
Yeah.
Drink the coffee, have the can, use it for something else.
Yeah.
Sustainability in that sense too. Or you could just thrift a weird little vessel or something that you find, like a coffee mug or something. And I've talked about this a lot because a couple of my vessels that I use here are just thrifted pieces. But I really love the idea of being like, it doesn't have to come at a large price. Like you could find something on Facebook Marketplace or something that's a lot cheaper than going and buying something that's like super expensive, just because we know planters get very expensive in what we do. And so being able to slowly start building your plant collection and your planters that you like specifically does not have to come at a high price, and it doesn't all have to happen all at once. I feel like a lot of times it takes time to really build, one, what you like and don't like, and two, actually start to build your collection or like the planners that go along with that.
Yeah.
And I think that just comes with like experience and time working with stuff. So like we talked about a lot of stuff like epiphytes and mounting stuff, and that might seem a little daunting, but you just got to start trying it, and then I feel like you'll really get into it and start wanting to try stuff that's different than just putting a plant in a container. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I just feel like it's
Yeah.
fun.
Get
It's
creative.
art. Guys, get creative. It's art.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, have fun with it, because I think at the end of the day, the best design styles are ones that you enjoy, because you have to live with it and they're your plants.
Mhm.
So love it and have fun with it and take chances. And I think that is such a great way to come up with some really interesting design.
Yes. That's all we have for today. We put out blogs all the time. Kelly's an amazing writer, and there is a blog that kind of follows along with what we were talking about. If you're interested in talking with us about design stuff, have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us at Plant Savvy Co. online. Our website is plantsavvy.com. We put out new videos whenever we decide to. All right. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.
Love you.
Love you. Love you, Mom.